and Ute and I looked at the topic of context. So that's our work package, to study social enterprise in context. Now, what is context? We've heard the word mentioned a couple of times today, that how important it is, but what is it actually? It's a bit of an abstract term, really. So context consists of the people, the organizations, and the institutions that surround us and that influence our decisions and actions. So organizations do not exist in a vacuum, right? So there's things surrounding them that influence their decision making. And I've put up some examples of things that you can think about when you think about context. So there, for instance, there's government. Government is very important when people think about context, so that they can, a lot of formal regulations and procedures come from government. For example, in the UK, they also provide specific legal forms for social enterprises. Now, government can provide tangible and intangible support for social enterprises. Tangible support, you can think about funding opportunities, but also providing physical infrastructure for social entrepreneurship. For example, by funding incubators for social enterprise, but also, as I said, the specific legal form, the CIC, which has made its way in the UK. So. And also they can provide intangible support, so in the form of endorsement, in the form of the public debate, influencing, setting the policy agenda in terms of, is social enterprise high on that policy agenda or not? So that's important as well. Another thing that you can think about when you think about context are organizations, and one particular type of organizations, or support organizations. We've heard today from Hannah from Unlimited, one of those support organizations. They provide funding and also in terms of finance, but also in kind, but they also provide opportunities for people to exchange knowledge and to come together and actually discuss what goes on in their daily lives as social entrepreneurs. So that's also what they do. Another thing about context is social enterprise leaders, yourselves basically. You influence each other. You influence each other's decisions. We've heard today from a couple of those very important people in the field of social enterprise who actually they set the tone, and they can also set the public debate. So they can influence the public debate, and they can set examples and influence also the government side of things by being exemplary and by leading. So, and then there's the thing called culture, people's ideas and attitudes towards social enterprise. What do people actually, the general public, what do they think of social enterprise? Are they positive? Do they like social? Do they know what social enterprise is? Do they buy social? So all those kind of things also influence your decisions as social entrepreneurs, of course. So these are a couple of things you can think about when we talk about context. Now, we looked at context in our study. So we asked people, the social entrepreneurs in our survey, we asked them, how supportive is your local environment of social enterprises? And we looked at three things, basically. We asked the social entrepreneurs about the cultural support they get from the general public. So do people know, in your environment, do people know what a social enterprise is? Are they generally positive towards the idea of social enterprise? Do they like to buy things from social enterprises? But we also looked at the local institutional environment. So we asked people, do your local authorities have a specific, are they supportive of social enterprise? Are banks funding social enterprises? Is the local business community supportive of social enterprise? And then finally, we ask people about general entrepreneurial culture. So are characteristics like risk-taking and innovativeness, are those things generally appreciated in your area? So we can see that actually overall, there's not that great of a difference between the different countries. Overall, it's quite similar. We see that in Romania, Sweden, and Russia, the institutional context, so the support of local institutions is slightly lower than in the other countries. But what stands out is actually it's not really unsupportive, so it's not like 1 or 2, but it's also not really very supportive. So it's sort of not. It could be much better, really. That's the message. So how do social enterprises actually experience their own context? So I drew up some fragments from the case studies that we did, and I'm not going to read them out to you. You can read them maybe while you listen to me as well. So they talk about how the legal frameworks not necessarily fit social enterprise, because these legal frameworks basically are designed around sort of a more traditional, maybe, if you will, commercial types of enterprises that do not necessarily fit social enterprise. So the CEO from the German social enterprise talks about, you know, this new labor law about that is aimed at preventing people from being exploited in the workplace. Actually, not really good for us, because what we do might be perceived as exploitation by people, but actually they don't get what we do. We actually offer people a job that would normally never ever get a job on the normal labor market. So these ideas, preconceived ideas of what labor law should be doing, doesn't fit their social enterprise necessarily. So moving on, if we think about this context that is not always as supportive as it potentially could be for social enterprise, how do social enterprise actually overcome the relative lack of support for what they do? So one way to deal with lack of support is collaboration. And we've heard this word already several times today. Richard also mentioned collaboration is basically key to everything. So previous research has shown that collaboration can aid innovation and create social impact. And one of the things is by how this works is if you collaborate with people that have already built up experience in a certain area, you can benefit from their knowledge. You don't have to invent the wheel time and time again. You can share knowledge and build on that knowledge. And like we talked about with innovation, you can combine elements that are already out there and build something new and better. So that's one of the things that is key in collaboration. And obviously also broaden the scale and the reach of social impact by actually putting your hands together and saying together we can actually do more and reach more people. So what do we find with regard to collaboration? So we find that actually a lot of social enterprises collaborate, and on average people have 29 collaborations, and this was asked over the year of 2014. So in 1 year the average number of collaborations that social enterprises develop is 29. And of course, as you can see, there are some differences between the countries. In Portugal very high, in Germany as well, and the UK and Spain a bit on the lower end here. So but they collaborate, people collaborate, so that's really good. So who do they collaborate with? So we see actually a similar pattern across countries with slight differences, but the main collaboration partners of social enterprises overall are other social enterprises, non-profits and NGOs, and commercial organizations, and government. But this idea of collaborating with government differs a bit between countries. In some countries, in Germany, this is more prominent than in the UK, for example, the examples that you can see here. And also whether it's national or local government, that differs between countries. So they collaborate with mainly social enterprises, non-profits or NGOs and commercial organizations. And why do they collaborate? What's the main reason? So we ask people, why do you engage in collaborations? And the main reason that people collaborate, they say, is to access resources, whether it's skills, so human capital, or whether an expertise, or whether it's finance. So there's different resources that you can access through collaboration. And we see that this is the main reason across countries that social enterprises collaborate. The second important reason is to actually scale social impact. So as I said, if you put your hands together and you join forces, you can actually reach more beneficiaries. And this is an important reason for collaborating. And then finally, the third important reason, we see that not in every country, but in Spain, UK, Hungary, Romania, that innovation is an important goal for collaborating. So developing new products and services is as well an important reason to collaborate. Now, what are the advantages of collaborating? Again, I drew up a couple of fragments from the interviews to illustrate what people are saying. So some people are saying, actually, our partners can do things that we can't do, that we don't have the knowledge or the skills to do. We are good at other things, but our partners do particular things that we don't have the expertise for. So together, we can create this particular product or service that actually benefits a whole lot of people. So another one says, as a collective force, you're actually more than the combination of elements. So actually, as a group of individuals, you create something, you create a movement that's more than just the sum of the individuals. So that's also a powerful argument, I think, for why people collaborate. So does collaboration also really result in anything? So does it improve your social impact, for example? So we looked at a couple of indicators for this. So the first one is social enterprises who collaborate are more likely to create social capital. And social capital we defined here in the form of creating new groups or networks. So on the horizontal axis, you can see the number of collaborations that people engage in. So as people engage in more collaboration, they're more likely to have created new groups or networks. So creating social capital. So this also means that lone heroes, as we phrase them here, are less likely to have created new groups or networks. So working alone doesn't seem to be very effective if you want people to get together, network, and create something together. And then second, we looked at another form of social capital, being promoting trust in communities. And again, we see that if you collaborate more, you're more likely to say yes to the statement, have you created or promoted trust in communities? So that's another thing where the lone heroes do not seem as successful as the people who do collaborate. And then finally, we looked at social enterprises, asking them, have you influenced or helped influence policy making over the last year? And the people who said yes to that question also are the people who are likely to have collaborated. So collaborating also, this creating something that's bigger than the sum of the individuals seems really important when we talk about policy making and influencing policy making. And this seems something that people who collaborate are able to do. So just to summarize, I know this was very quick, but to summarize, the context within which social enterprises operate is not particularly unsupportive, but it's also not particularly supportive. So there's much work to do, and there's much room for improvement there. And part of this may be due to the relative novelty of the phenomenon of social enterprise in some countries. Of course, we are now in the UK, and the UK has a long history of social enterprise, and the context might be here more supportive, but in other countries, the lack of knowledge about the topic might be something that needs to be improved. And then particular financial and regulatory needs of social enterprises are not really being met at the moment by the legal frameworks and the institutional frameworks that are currently in place. And then finally, social entrepreneurs can overcome a relative lack of support in their environment by engaging in collaboration. So I want to leave you with that. So collaboration seems to be one of the keys to creating social impact and to overcoming some of those barriers that are potentially posed by your context.